Greetings, citizens, and welcome to an extremely early, EU-friendly edition of Reverse the Verse, the show I agreed to do live before considering just how pre-sunlight I'd have to wake up to have some of my favorite people on from the Frankfurt office when I did it. I'm your host, content manager Jared Huckabee. Let's go ahead and jump right into the week in review. Last Friday, we had Chris Roberts on the show with our very first live Q&A dedicated exclusively to Squadron 42. Now, there was a ton of info in there, like confirmation of the playable female character, the kind of emotional impact we're looking to create in players, and even how the game ended. I know, I was surprised too. And none of the recaps picked up on it. I guess you'll have to watch to find out. This Monday was another edition of Calling All Devs, where we answered questions about playable group missions, the medical side of gameplay, external MFD apps for tablets and smart devices, the Avenger rework, and the future of the Voyager Direct Store. If you haven't seen it, it's up on YouTube now, and the more views it gets, the more likes I get here in the office, so go give it a look if you haven't already. Tuesday is, of course, Lore Day in Star Citizen, and this week featured another installment of the Untold Tales series, which chronicles the tragic loss of naval combat pilot Lawrence Keyfly and the stunning mystery of what happened next. Also, I get $5 from the Lore team every time I plug it. It pays to be disco. Wednesday was a packed day, with both another edition of our bi-weekly series Bug Smashers and also our January monthly subscribers town hall, where members of the technical content team, thanks to Sean Tracy, answered almost 6 questions in 1 hour. Yeah, a new record high. I'm kidding. It was 7 questions. I love you, Sean Tracy. Yes, in that way. And on Thursday, we caught up with our team in the Frankfurt studio and all that they've been working on since the last time we checked in with them. Of special note, there were some super slick cinematics from the Vertical Slice level that I've only watched about a dozen or so times in the last 24 hours. Just fantastic stuff from the team in Frankfurt. And on today's show, we'll be sitting down with Brian Chambers and Todd Pappy to discuss the things we saw on the show, their work on the Vertical Slice, and answer your questions live. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this song that's only been out for like 4 days, but it's somehow been stuck in my head for 4 weeks. Seriously, it's your turn now. See you in a bit.
Yalla nana, lost all my cargo back on Yalla nana. All my AUEC on Yalla nana. It stored my ship for me on Yalla. Can't get it back from Yalla. Oh Yalla na, go get some cargo, they said to me. Sell it and double your AUEC. Oh, went out there thinking it would be easy. Made my way over to ArcCorp Mining, and I was like, ooh, I filled up all my cargo with what I could buy of barrel. And I was like, ooh, I made it out past Atmo, and the server crashed. Oh no, 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 no. Yalla nana, lost all my cargo back on Yalla nana. All my AUEC on Yalla nana. It stored my ship for me on Yalla. Can't get it back from Yalla. Oh Yalla nana. Oh Yalla nana. Oh Yalla nana. Oh Yalla nana. Can't get it back from Yalla.
All right, and that was Yella Yell, and like I said, it's only been out for about 4 days, but somehow it has been stuck in my head for 4 weeks, and now I have shared the pain and joy with you guys. Joining me from Frankfurt, live from our Frankfurt Foundry 42 UK DE office. It's really early. I hear you. I hear you. Brian Chambers and Todd Pappy. How you guys doing, man?
Hello. Doing good. How about you, man?
It's early. It's early. I woke up all congested. I'm rocking the halls right now, so I have some semblance of a voice. So this is your first time on the new RTV. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Because this is always somebody's first show, why don't you start off by introducing just who you are and what you do for Star Citizen?
My name's Brian Chambers. I am the development director of the Foundry 42 Frankfurt office.
And I'm Todd Pappy, Star Citizen live game director.
All right, and what does development director and live game director mean?
From gameplay perspective, I'm worried about what's going out in the patches. Basically, each release, I'm looking at it from player's perspective, making sure it's the quality level that it needs to be.
My job's all over the place, but ultimately it's to make sure that the office is running the way it needs to, team's focused and healthy, and I jump in wherever is needed to help sort stuff out if and when needed.
All right. Now, of course, on RTV, we do take questions live from our, I was going to say studio audience, but they're not studio audience, our in-home audience. I don't know how to refer to you guys. The backers that are watching on Twitch right now. So if you are watching live, you can submit your questions to be posed to Brian Chambers and Todd Pappy by either submitting your questions in Twitch chat, where we're broadcasting now. You can preface your question with the word question, surround them in brackets. That's going to help us pull them through with all the other conversation. You can also submit questions live on Spectrum, which is the communication platform we've got going on robertspacindustries.com. You go to robertspacindustries.com, click on General, jump in there, and you can submit your questions there. We also have a thread that's been up. We're collecting questions, pre-gaming some questions so we can get started, where backers have not only submitted questions, but they voted on which ones they want to see answered most. And Todd,
there's currently 72 up there right now.
There's currently 72 questions in the thread. Yeah. The first question is, this feels like a question for Brian. Brian, this says, when is Daddy coming home?
Can you define Daddy?
I don't know. He doesn't give me any more information.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can, let me go to my desk and do some math, and I'll reply to it later.
All right. The people on Spectrum are having fun with us. Okay. Right off the bat, there's one question that's dominated chat and conversation for the last week, since Saturday of last week. So we're just going to jump right into this. Todd Pappy, this one's almost certainly for you. Last week, one of our designers was answering a question about insurance and how the replacement of ships work in Star Citizen right now, including how stolen ships work with insurance. And our designer made some comments about how that system works today, how that system works in 3.0 and 3.1. But some of that was perhaps maybe taken out of context. They thought that maybe he was talking about long-term plans. What can you tell us about that?
So it was taken out of context, first and foremost. From there, what Chris's high-level vision is that he does want you to be able to steal ships and have the capacity to actually hold on to them for as long as you possibly can. However, that's going to require, you jump through certain hoops. We haven't figured out what those hoops are yet, but think of it as, like Grand Theft Auto, or in this case, it'd be Grand Theft Spaceship. And therefore, if you're ever caught with this, then it would basically be considered a felon, and you'd go to jail for a long time in the game, or you'd be chased down, hunted, possibly put up as a bounty, and pay it that way.
Okay. Now, as often with everything else in Star Citizen, our development is iterative. We have to start with building the way things are supposed to work before you go and build the way that you build the lawful behavior before you build the unlawful behavior, because you have to know, one before you work the other one. And we're still building the lawful behavior.
Yeah, and in many ways, when we're talking about law, it will be solar system based. So it will be solar system and then local base, but the idea would be that the overarching solar system has a set of rules associated with it, just like states in the United States do versus England versus Germany. Everywhere there's different laws, but there's some common elements. However, in cases like Grim Hex, the local law might be different than the solar system law, and so those are things that we have to work out. And we've started it, from a high level design position, and we've done some write ups on it. But as far as implementing it and getting that into the game, it's on our backlog.
Gotcha. All right, so right now it sounds like there's really nothing to report about any definitive nature, regarding piracy and how it's going to work. It's just right now we're focused on the current implementation. What's in front of us.
Well, it's focusing on the current implementation, but I mean, rest assured, it's one of those things where we view this as, a possible career. Whether that be a pirate, an assassin, a smuggler, so on and so forth. We view those as careers that we want you to be able to do. And for people that like to play that way, including myself, then I want to make sure it's as fun as possible.
I mean, you can brainstorm about all the gameplay surrounded about stealing other people's ships or retrieving stolen ships, or it goes on and on.
I mean, it's you want to be able to skirt the line. So whether it be like Han Solo or Malcolm Reynolds, you want to be able to smuggle. You want to be able to do that. Aim to misbehave kind of thing.
Todd Pappy just made 2 Firefly references in the chat. Goes crazy. All right. So, well, like I said, we're taking questions live from Spectrum Chat, live from Twitch Chat, and from our dedicated Spectrum thread. One of the questions here was any updates on buying ships with Alpha UEC in 3.1? We actually addressed that on Calling All Devs.
We did.
Recently.
We did. So the main issue that's holding us back right now is the item kiosk. So we've done the commodities kiosk. Once we do the items kiosk, then that will free us up to do this stuff. So it's fairly high on the game team in LA's backlog. However, they're working through optimizations and a few other things before we actually get to that shop.
Okay. Going back to the thread where we were collecting, one of the top voted questions was 2 constellations that carry Merlins, and Merlins themselves are ready. The constellation Andromeda, the constellation Aquila. What's still needed to be done to have people be able to launch their Merlins from their constellations?
One word: docking. So as soon as we get docking done, then basically you can undock, or you can dock, and then it's the same thing with the control module on the Caterpillar, and so we got to get that working, just from a user interface standpoint and from a code perspective, being able to separate and then figure out how we're going to allow them to dock. But it's something that we need to do, just because as we introduce a lot of the newer ships into the game, and a lot of the newer ships that are coming down the pipe, meaning like getting the Reclaimer in, or all these other major ships, a lot of them are need to be docked. In the case of the Reclaimer, not so much, but our capital ships and those types of things. So we need to be able to do that. It's just right now we have higher priorities.
All right. Now everybody knows that one of the focuses of the Frankfurt studio is our procedural planet tech. This person just wants to know what's next for our procedural planet tech. What are we working on now?
Well,
we've got 3 moons in game.
Yeah, we've got 3 moons in game. So right now we're working on Levski, and we're working on ArcCorp. So going through and making basically getting all that ArcCorp planet working the way it needs to be working, making sure that everything's integrated. But the main thing that is kind of holding us back from releasing that stuff is the object container system. But with that, there's a lot of other systems that come online that we need to put in and do. Then there's Lorville that's being worked on and its associated moons. So, but there's the flora that is being worked on as far as getting greenery into the game or other types of trees or plants, and actually making it feel lush. So I think the push towards that is a major thing, and it's a very time consuming thing to build up all those assets. And then there's another question in there. I'm going to jump in on this one, and it's about fauna. So being able to make sure that we actually have fauna in the game, and with that, there's alpha or there's prey, and then basically each fauna would have kind of its own 24-hour schedule. There's usables that it can go and round and do. So whether that be drinking water or whatever it drinks or eats, and then what can it go? Does it go scratch up against a tree or something like that to mark its territory? Those types of things.
Gotcha. All right, we have a kind of a follow-up question to that came from the live chat. With planetary LODs, basically, how you go farther up from the planet, everything starts to lower in LOD. Will the flora and fauna, as it gets further down in LODs, will that expose players who are hiding? Apparently, that happens in some games.
Well, it does, but I think one of the things that we've always strived for is making it look good from far away, as it does up close and personal. And so that was a comment that Chris called out when we showed off the Lorville stuff. We showed it off from the player perspective, but what does it look like from a ship, flying above, and how does that hold up? And those are all things that we're working on and working towards.
Absolutely, and even on top of the new stuff that we're working on, which is chunky and assets and flora and populating with more and even new planets, we're also constantly working on updating and maturing what we actually have. We recently did a pass on the textures to get seams to even blend smoother, and we're looking at those, and we're looking at the LODs and how things fall off and how the LODs are blending and together. So even though there's some things that may not be as substantial as hey, here's a whole new moon with a whole new look, we're constantly have a group of guys that are pushing the existing tech we have to get it as mature as we want it to be.
Okay. One of the you mentioned currently iterating and building on what's come before. One of the things we highlighted in your studio report yesterday was the lighting passes on things like Grimhex. Just using Grimhex as an example. I mean, I thought Grimhex looked pretty good already. Yeah. And then when the B-roll started coming in for ATV, I'm like, really, that wasn't good enough? We're still making it look better?
No, it is.
It's also introducing the new fog into it and getting that basically wreaked havoc, I think, with the old lighting. So now it's doing a pass on it now that we have all the new fog in place.
But once we give it more attention to detail, and we've defined even more in the art style we want, and the tools mature, we start pumping in, as Todd was saying, more atmospherics, and the guys are getting even more used to the tools and so on. And I'm absolutely with you. I mean, you'll see something that I looked at a month, 2-3 months ago, and I'll see it now, and like on Chris Campbell's desk, our lead lighting artist, and you'll just go, wow, right? You'll just look at it and go, okay. Lighting, it's a clear indication that lighting the atmospherics absolutely breeds, a feel for the environment and can push it drastically one way or another.
Now, I know neither one of you guys are environmental artists, but it does come up in chat. I'm seeing it come up in chat right now. What do you have to say to people who say maybe too much fog?
Well, I mean, I think there's times that we can say that, and then there's other times, like at least for me, as a game player, like I want very clear signage. I want to understand where I'm going. I want to not look at a mini map, all the time to understand, work out the 3D layout of an area to to understand where I need to go. So if it's selling a mood or selling an emotion, and I think it's good there. But if it's too much fog, or if it's actually obscuring, the way that the players can find things, then that to me is an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I read a few of those comments as well. Some people are saying it was too much. Some people said no, it's perfect, right? But yeah, as Todd said, I mean, each planet, each area, it's going to have a certain amount of density within the atmosphere for certain reasons. And what you see today doesn't necessarily mean it's it. We may come back and look and go, absolutely, you know what, we need to dial that down 10% for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you'll see a whole very mix of atmospheres, and yeah, some will be pretty dense that will be hard to see through, but maybe that's for a reason.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I want to make sure that there's gameplay associated with
Absolutely.
that. So.
Yeah, that's when the bad dudes jump out and get you.
One of the things that's been talked about in broadcasts like this for years is the possibility of using immobilized capital ships as Star Marine levels. I think the earliest call out to that was a capture the Idris, kind of mode. One of the questions here that's been voted up in the Spectrum thread is, do you plan to implement immobilized capital ships as Star Marine levels for quick and easy new content?
If it makes sense, and from a game mode perspective, like it would actually have to make sense. It's not something that we've tried yet, but just because there's other things that we've been fixing. I understand it, and I understand why people would want it. I'd be interested in even just trying it in the PU, see what it feels like there first. But I mean, I'm not nixing it. I'm just saying that we're not working on it right now.
Fair enough. Here's a question about the new interaction system. Obviously, one of the big new features in 3.0 so far is the new player interaction system. This question says, can we expect alternate key bindings to control the MFDs as opposed to being forced to use the mouse and interaction system?
That's a good question.
And I know that when people have their setup with the hands-on throttle and stick, hands-on stick and stick, stuff like that. They don't always, there's some features they don't always want to pull their hands off and have to switch to another control scheme, stuff like that. So, what are our thoughts about adding additional key mappings to quick key some of these functions?
I guess for me, it would be more about freeing the player up to do that. To be able to set it to whatever they want, from a key binding perspective. It's something that's we haven't really explored just yet, just because again we first got it in, and then we were just talking about HOTASes today and kind of how they feel, and people complaining about having to switch over to keyboard and mouse. So. But I'll speak to Andy about it, and I'll see, from code perspective, how hard it is to map that, and we go from there.
Okay. Also, if I can offer a follow-up, this isn't from the thing. When I try to set up the keyboard, my HOTAS. The game is looking at the controller IDs that Windows assigns and not the controller IDs that are specific from the game. And so sometimes when I reboot my computer, the controller IDs change, and now the devices are different. I
actually had a really long conversation with somebody at like a Bar Citizen or something about that. That they basically have filled up every single input that they have, and they were all custom. And every time they reboot, it's all blown out, and they have to redo it all. So it's.
Yeah, it's because the game right now grabs the ID from Windows and not directly from the controller, I think. So maybe that's something we can ask Andy about too. All right. So we're making a list, people.
Well, just forward that me after this.
Okay.
And I'll check into it.
Sorry, that wasn't from the chat. That was me. I apologize.
Thanks, Jared.
Okay. Next question from Spectrum: what design differences separate light, medium, and heavy fighters from one another? I'm assuming they're talking about ships and not different armors for people.
I mean, if we're talking about different numbers for people, then it's basically speed would be the main thing, the amount of bullets that you can actually take, and the loadout that you can actually carry. From a ship's
And your damage as well.
Yeah, and from a ship's perspective, it's basically the same thing. So it's weight, it's the loadout. So whether that be shields, weapons, items. Then it's movement, so how fast and nimble it is able to move around, and then from there, how far it can go, the fuel that it can carry, so on and so forth. So, in speaking with John Crew and Andy about this, it's more about making sure that we're setting the two ends of the spectrum. So what we set is the heavy fighter, and we set the light fighters, and make sure that those are in the categories that we feel they need to be, and then from there, that will help us establish the medium fighters. John and Andy have done some tweaks, to basically, I think it was the Gladius and the Hornet, and I'm trying to remember if those are in 3.01. If not, they will definitely be in 3.1. But we're going through and we're definitely adjusting how the ships fly, and we will continue to balance as much as we possibly can.
Okay. Next question from the live chat. We discussed Lorville in ATB, and you just mentioned the ability, the fauna might graze and go to water. Does that mean that Lorville will have water, like bodies of water? I'm assuming they're asking.
Well, I think that there will be something there, whether or not it's and even we showed it in at CitizenCon. So they flew over some sort of lake or sea. But as far as it going up and it actually being H2O, it will be some form of liquid. I don't know if it's brown or, like Bud Light kind of thing.
All right. Here's a good follow-up question for that then. Will there be wildlife? Will there be fauna in the bodies of water? That's how
we haven't built any yet, but I know Chris wants to be able to swim, and maybe in the future we talk about doing a underwater vehicle if there's a lot of water prevalent in all of our areas. But I'm sure that in order to add life to that location, that's going to be one of the things that we look into is adding flora and fauna.
I like the way you just casually dropped. We've been talking about underwater vehicles. There, you just.
Well, we haven't. Well, I mean, we've kind of discussed it, but it really depends on, how much water we have in the universe. And I think on Reddit I saw like was it a javelin or a bangle in sitting on a water. Somebody did like concept art.
Yeah. Well, for my part, it's the last part for me to get my land and sea and air. GI Joe.
Okay.
Off the ground.
Yeah.
So.
If you think about the level of detail, though, that we're putting into everything, bodies of water, you would assume further down the line they would absolutely need to have something in order to kind of match the quality of immersion that we've put with everything else.
Yep. And of course, if I remember correctly, at one of our earliest live events, like one of the PAXs or the first Gamescom went out, Chris took questions from the crowd, and like the first question was, "Can we fish in Star Citizen?" It was like one of the very first backer questions ever posed to Chris live. So there's definitely some.
My guess is that he probably said yes.
Yeah, as he is wont to do.
What kind of fishing line would you have?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's just design fishing gameplay right here, right now.
Like
No.
be like laser fishing or something. Right?
Yeah, it's you do it like you just throw dynamite.
I was going to say, you just point the railgun at the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. They just float to the top.
All right. For another question from the live chat here. The universe is currently very dark. Will there be another pass, or will we get enhanced vision modes?
I mean, we've talked about, IR, EM kind of signatures and being able to see those as far as like long-term exploration. And I know that Tony wants to be able to look at, different parts of the EM spectrum, which is kind of strange because we do EM and then we have IR, which is already on the EM spectrum. But being able to, go in and look at it from, X-ray or gamma or something like that. So we've talked about it from an exploration standpoint, but not necessarily like a night vision. Okay, I want to look at it this way. But I think once we do one, getting the screen filter to do other ones is pretty quick.
Sorry, I'm thinking about a night vision monocle right now for concierge.
Yeah,
Good.
that would work.
All right.
So wait, night fishing.
Yes, exactly.
Night fishing.
Yes.
I'll just bring it back around on brand, Brian.
Thanks.
All right. This question says we've seen hacking in places like Korea. Will hacking work in ships?
The plan is for it to work in ships as well as just space stations in general. And we've done kind of early prototyping of like the power system through ships as well as through space stations. And so if you're going through, you're turning off light, turning off gravity, turning off life support, hacking open a door. As far as if there's a mini game or anything like that associated with it, then those are things that we've had initial discussions about, but until we actually start digging into it, and until the sprint teams really focus on it, we won't dive any deeper than we already have.
All right. Now, I'm going to go full disclosure here. Our good friend, lead community manager Tyler Witkin, is the one who goes through your questions as you're submitting them and then sends them to me and whatnot, so I don't have to keep up with multiple chats.
My best friend?
Yep.
Okay.
He sent me a question here that I don't believe came from a backer. I think it came from him. So
Great.
it says, will we get toilets used for quote unquote logging out? I'm pretty positive this came from Tyler Witkin. I don't think this came from the Star Citizen community.
That's
Not for quitting the game, but for we've joked about it where basically your vision gets redder and redder if you haven't dropped a deuce in quite a while. Like we've talked about that, or that people can smell you and therefore they have adverse reactions towards you, and if you haven't showered. These are all things that we've talked about, but as far as it logging out and your way of quitting the game, no. Sorry to kill your dreams, Tyler.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I am very tempted to just end the show on that one. All right.
Well, you asked the question.
I know. I was curious
You
what
have
you
to
would
play,
say.
man. Yeah.
Plus, I figured you'd go on enough that I could sneak in another halls while you were talking. All right. Here's a question to follow up to ATV that we showed yesterday. Were the trees shown in ATV yesterday part of a biome plan for Hurston, or were they just general plant explorations?
I believe those are general plant explorations. The idea, I think, in particular for the Hurston family, is that they have these compounds that are very lush and have these areas that don't look like the rest of the world. But it's more about this is the family compound, and since they run the planet, they can water the area. Think of like Las Vegas and golf resorts. Like basically they water the grass there, and if they didn't, it would just be dead.
Yeah.
And it'd be just sand and die. And I think that's kind of the concept for these compounds with Hurston.
Gotcha.
So you could argue that some of them stay within that family, but I think they're definitely be used as assets that could be used elsewhere if needed as well.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. By the time all is said and done, I'd be amazed if there's a biome we haven't explored in some way, shape, or form.
Well, in the future, if you ever get Ian on, you need to have him,
I've tried.
kind of show you the power triangle. So, where he's worked out, the different biomes and kind of where it goes from dirt to snow to, overrun by jungle as well as, other things. So, it's pretty interesting. But if he ever, comes on, hands up.
Yeah, I've tried. It's not that Ian doesn't want to do it. Just Ian's a very busy guy. They've got a lot of environments to build.
His team is huge, and it's spread out as well.
Yeah.
And he's always busy.
He's got a lot to manage. Okay, next question is about MFDs. What are our chances of getting a companion app for our phones? I want to take this one real quick. We actually addressed the MFD question on this week's Calling All Devs. So the answer to that is literally available on YouTube right now, so go check that out. As far as a companion app, that was a Star Citizen stretch goal. So that's something that should happen at some point, but we're not anywhere near ready to start developing. We're still making the game. Let's make the game before we do the companion app. But that was one of our original stretch goals. So that will be somewhere in the future. And of course, the question about controlling MFDs from external tablets and stuff, that answers on this Monday's Calling All Devs, which you can find on our YouTube channel. All right, let's see what else do we got here. Follow up on the vision question. Could we have special sight modes attached to a scope attachment of a weapon? So maybe not necessarily different modes in your helmet or whatever, but a scope for your sniper weapon that gives you night vision or something.
Yes.
Yes.
As soon as we do the first one, or as soon as we have the ability to basically switch between different visions, then yes.
Okay. Wait, what does this one say? Hold on, I lost it here. There's something about Todd Pappy's eyes.
Come on, Jared, we are live.
Yeah, I know.
So we could do night fishing and night shooting then.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
I was just filling up
with
dead
the
air
railgun.
for you, Jared.
All right. I lost it. So, next question says, dangerous plants. Will that be a thing? Like the Audrey 2?
Almost like a Venus flytrap.
Yeah, like a carnivorous plant?
It's not something that we've talked about, but what we do want to develop is environmental hazards, whether those be like geysers or lava or those types of things. Magma. And so I don't see why we couldn't do it on a plant. Whether or not it picks you up and eats you, or it's like a cactus and pricks you, then. I think that's.
I saw some early concepts when the team here was working on some of the flora months and months ago. And when you talk about some of the flora for some of these kind of more alien planets and moons, some of them looked mean.
Yeah.
Just looking at these things that are spiky and so on. So even if they can't actively go after you and hurt you, they definitely don't seem lush and nice to touch. So,
All right, I'm just going to read this one exactly as it came to me.
great.
My name is Magnetron, and I constantly crash into planets. When will ships have better lights? Sure, blame the ship lights, Magnetron. Blame the ship lights.
Come on, let Magnetron know.
Magnetron, it's something that we've looked at. It's something that Luke Presley and I have complained about, whether that be on the human flashlights or even on ship lights. It's something that graphics is aware of, and our art directors are very aware of as well. So I'm not going to say anything for 3.1, but on the later aspects, the more stuff that we start putting on the dark side, and the more that basically I give Ian and Nate hell about that, then ideally we see a change.
Okay. Another question from the thread where players not only submitted questions, but they voted on which ones they want to see answered. What are our plans for Star Marine in 2018, if any?
Well, first things first is getting the front ends working the way it should. Basically, in 3.0, you saw the release of the Personal Manager app, and So the main goal is getting that front end screen switched over to the Personal Manager app. So then when we fix one thing in the Personal Manager app, it fixes both areas. Getting rec so getting rid of basically electronic access on the website and getting rec into the game so that when you actually when you earn this rec, you can go in there and you can purchase the weapons or the armor sets or whatever else, gadgets, grenades, those types of things in the store that way. Then we've talked about a different game mode, and some art has been done on that. But there's a lot of testing and level design work that needs to be done to get that thing up to snuff. And then from there, there's, basically fixing the game modes. We're working on FPS, we're working on EVA. And so that will be a constant adjustment and constant way that we're always trying to fix.
Okay. Same question, but for Arena Commander.
So, we've got the kind of the VMA initial things working there, and the VMA obviously in 3.0, that code is shared now.
What is VMA?
Sorry, Vehicle Manager app.
Okay.
So that is in 3.0. It's buggy. We know. We're working on it right now. Then the front end screen already uses the VMA. So as far as the hierarchy and the way that you attach things to the ship, so getting that up to snuff and working the way that we want it to work. There's constant balancing things that Luke does, throughout with the different swarms, whether those be pirate swarms or Vandal swarm. Mm-hmm. Then we're working on racing and basically fixing a lot of the bugs that we're having in there. The thing with having too many modes, now this is my personal belief, but having too many modes, like having too many Star Marine modes, having too many AC modes, and then having the PU, and when we have a whole bunch of concurrent players and stuff like that, then it makes finding games a lot easier. But if we're running lower on concurrent players, then basically adding more and more modes doesn't necessarily gain us what we're after, which is getting you into a quick match. We've even talked about just find me a match, and then it finds the one that's about to be filled and add you to it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna, because we can't have one of these Q&A shows without it coming up a dozen times. Carrick?
What about it?
That's literally all it is. People just want anything at all. I don't know. I don't think it's on our roadmap for 2018.
I don't think so.
All right, let me do this. We've got another ship shape coming up in ATV in February. Let me find out the answer. Let me talk to people, and if there's anything to report, we'll report it there, guys. So tune into ATV. It's middle of February somewhere is our next ship shape. So I'll hunt that answer down. Todd Pappy, I think you're great. Will you go to the Spring Sunshine Ball with me? That's definitely from Tyler. That's definitely from Tyler.
Yeah. I'll give you a little story about Tyler. My wife and kids walked into the LA office, and I think it was Tyler's first day as a community manager. So he was there being trained. He walked up to my wife. She had never met him, and he basically kind of gives her a hug, and he says, "Hi, I'm Todd's best friend." That was his introduction to her, and she walks away and it's like, what?
I do want to refute one aspect of that story because I was there. Tyler received no training. I gave Tyler no training whatsoever.
Oh, come on. You probably paid him $5 or dared him, right?
All right. Here's a question from the live chat. What kind of play style would Brian Chambers and Todd Pappy play in the verse? Todd, earlier you said you wanted to play pirate.
Piracy. Yeah.
Piracy?
Yeah.
What about you, Brian?
I think I'd probably jump pirate as well.
Really?
I was asked this before. I would probably change like every other day play style.
I think you'd be a bad pirate, though.
Oh,
think so?
Go into that. Why is that?
Yeah. Why is that, Todd? Let's
Not a
talk.
naughty pirate, like
No?
a bad pirate. One that gets caught all the time.
But that's part of it, right?
yeah.
If I don't get caught, then I can't try to escape.
Yeah, for me,
Right.
it's either piracy, mining, or salvage.
Okay.
Yeah. I honestly don't have one that I'm heavier on. Like when we talk about mining and we start digging into that, I'm like, all right, mining, absolutely, I'm there. And then you talk about piracy and stealing ships and what you can do with that, and people on your tail, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of whatever I fancy at the time, I think.
So actually, real quick, to go back to the hacking question, one of the things that
Well, that was
no,
like an
no,
hour ago.
because this has to do with piracy. So one of the things that we've talked about is breaching. So there's basically the invasive breaching, so blowing up a door or blowing off a turret and then being able to go in that way. Then there's non-invasive breaching, which in this case would be hacking.
Gotcha.
So
Thanks for that clarity, Todd
yeah,
Pepe.
I'll just drop the mic and walk away now.
It's a headset.
All right. Here's another question from the live chat. Pretty popular topic in the video game industry right now. Will Star Marine, sorry, let me rephrase this. Have we considered adding a Battle Royale gameplay mode to Star Marine? Like Battle Royale gameplay like PUBG or Fortnite or, it's
Yeah,
all the rage
yeah.
right now.
I guess for me, if we did, I would want to make sure that it oozes Star Citizen, and it's not like PUBG reskinned or like Fortnite kind of thing. So I would prefer it to be, oozing Star Citizen.
Okay. So that's not a confirmation that we're working on or anything. That's Todd saying if we did consider something like that.
Yeah.
That's before somebody runs to Reddit like, they said they're working on it and they're making it Star Citizen-y. That's not what he said.
$5 somebody does.
It was
Or sorry, €5.
All right. Another question from the chat. Given that the Frankfurt team works on cinematics, when can we expect Squadron 42 style story and cinematics in the Persistent universe? Are we doing cinematics in the Persistent universe?
I mean, we've talked about like cutaways and those types of things. Like if you're doing a special mission, but I think the most cinematic that we'll get would be like interacting with the mission givers, or those types of things. But if you're doing a mission, and it's now here's the thing: like what we've talked about is having different levels of what we consider missions or jobs, and so there'd be the job board versions, or basically like the service beacon versions, which are the player created contracts, and then there's the mission giver ones, which would in our mind would be a lot more bespoke and kind of unique, and would be a longer play time, to actually finish. And so I think if any cinematics show up, it would be more in that
Those
kind of
depth,
vein.
chunky ones. Yeah.
Okay. You said the magic word there, service beacons. We've been hearing a lot about service beacons lately. We've got our new Calling All Dev show where we ask questions, and Luke has been talking about service beacons, and you've been mentioning service beacons for people who, because we put out so much information, not everybody can keep up with everything that we do. Give me a quick rundown of what the service beacon system is.
So the service beacon is a way to create a contract, so, and that contract could be, help me, I'm being attacked. So like a distress call, a mayday kind of thing. Then there's, something like refueling, or I want to be taken from point A to point B. So like a taxi or Uber. Then there's like a mercenary hire, or like a bodyguard, hire me and protect me while I'm traveling from point A to point B, or if I'm mining or doing something. Like it's a way for players to create contracts as well as transfer funds. That for me is one of the main goals. Is right now I know if, let's say you, Brian, and I went out on a mission and we did something, and I was the owner of the ship, and then I go in and I basically, turn in the cargo that we got. There's no way for me to pay off the two of you guys. So, from a usability standpoint, from a player standpoint, this is, one of my main goals. And I think, Tony and I would need to talk a little bit more about how we're going to actually do it, just because right now we're focusing on distress as the first one. But one of my main goals after we finish off the distress would be a way to actually transfer funds to between players.
Gotcha.
You'd probably kill Jared and I instead of paying us.
Not
Probably.
necessarily.
Probably.
I'm not that mean.
I bet you €5.
Yeah. If you guys didn't give me
So
if you
somebody-
took my unicorns or something like that.
If you're trying to
then yes.
track down your ship somebody stole, you could use Service Beacon as well then, right?
No, that should be, well, I guess if you want to put a bounty on somebody, then that could be.
Oh, okay.
May not get your ship back, but it'll get you some recognition. anyway.
some satisfaction.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about, right?
Exactly. I want my satisfaction.
All right. So this next question says, who is your favorite producer to work with? And the username is M. Lightfoot. Who's your
Mr.
favorite?
Lighty? Lighty is fun to work with. His non-HR name is Sweet Princess, because what he does is he's a feeder. So whenever I go around and if I go up to the UK, he's got chocolates or other biscuits or things on his desk that taste wonderful but are horrible for your waistline. So it's always, hey Todd, do you want some of these? But the thing is that we've got so many different producers, and
Absolutely.
I like each one of them for their own unique reasons. Lightfoot.
I'm really glad you prefaced that with the non-HR name. All right. One of the last questions before we're gonna let you go. Non-lethal weapons in handcuffs. This comes up quite a bit. Bounty hunting, one of those professions that a lot of people are really looking forward to. What can you tell us about non-lethal weapons?
One of the last shows I was on, they asked the same question. It might have
Yeah.
been the one me and you were on.
But
comes up
it
quite
might
a
have
bit.
been.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about stun grenades. We've talked about, basically like taser aspects and to knock players out. So it's something that we've talked about. And right now we're working on Weapon 2.0. So basically refactoring of all the weapon system and switching it over to like the item 2.0 and getting everything to work the way that we feel we need it to work and get it so it's scalable. So once that's done, then we have a list of projectiles that we want to be able to create, and so that we just don't have laser and distortion and ballistic. If we can get the like the dread hot shot, or armor piercing or those types of things, those are the way that we're pushing towards. And then non-lethal would be another venture into that, and then it's also making sure that the players actually have a stun, or some sort of reaction to that. And then the other thing that we'd have to tackle is basically, as a player, if you were ever knocked out, what do you do? Because as a player, me watching somebody drag my body to their ship, that's not going to be very fun. And so is it basically, do I sit there and kind of wait? And, are there ways that I can alert my friends to come and help me and save me? Or is it that, at that point I give up that life and then I'm respawned, and then, they take their bounty and get paid out.
On that topic too, interesting thing to, just kind of point out and to highlight. Let's say we have assets done and, the base design of how a non-lethal weapon X should function, right, and look and so on. Let's say you have the asset built, the effects, the audio, and all that. Well, you also need the animations associated with that. You also need then the kind of feedback on the player feedback and the design or the UI elements, so on and so on. So there's a tremendous amount of stuff that we work on, but it doesn't get out there yet until it has all the parts and pieces, right? It's not enough just for us to put out one little thing and you can kind of see it and go, oh, look, this kind of would stun people if the animations were there.
If it actually worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, a lot of our work, we have to wait till those other parts and pieces come together globally to where we can then really stand back and look at it all and play it and go, okay, cool, this is working. And that's when things get closer to release for us.
From a bounty hunter perspective, we do want to do it. It's just we haven't started yet.
Yep.
All right. Last question before I let you go. I'm pretty sure this one is from JJ, our cinematographer. Brian, what kind of conditioner do you use?
Should I just put down my headset and walk away? Tell JJ that he can private message me and I'll give him all the details.
All right.
For €5.
You're really on that €5 thing.
Yeah, sorry, just playing.
Tight is.
It's Hurston fish. He just
Yeah,
rubs
maybe I should like
fresh salmon. He just rubs it across his scalp.
Hurston salmon.
Yeah,
Trademark Hurston salmon.
and bless you.
Yeah, I've been holding my breath when you guys have been talking, just trying not to cough throughout the entire thing. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the show this week.
Thanks for getting up early, so we didn't have to stay too late.
Exactly.
Much appreciated.
It's never a chore when it's the two of you.
Oh, so sweet.
No, he's not really.
Yeah. Why are you growing that beard back out?
I just haven't. It's less work to just let it grow than it is to keep shaving it and to keep waking up and going. So I'm gonna shave it again. There'll be a point where I'm like, tired, because I won't do that beard we just did. That will never happen ever again. So there's gonna be a point.
So Jake always grows out his beard as well. Jake Ross in Austin, and then he does fun mustaches afterwards. So I think you just need to do like a big handlebar mustache.
No, go look at his Twitter and
I did the mustache.
He was it was what, Dad?
Yeah, it looked just like my father, and that was
it literally. I think his
terrifying.
mustache hung below his chin. I think
it was terrifying. Plus, hipsters have ruined mustaches. So, all right, guys, we're gonna let you go.
Cool. Awesome.
Folks watching at home, we're gonna play a quick video, and we'll be right back with our wrap up. So, see you in a bit.
Bye.
Like goes hard.
Yeah. And then we both die.
Yeah.
Wouldn't look cool though. Land in, then just a big explosion.
Tell you what, the camera angle here, if you land it.
Here she comes.
That was awesome.
That was perfect. Lovely.
Well, that about wraps up this week's show. A special thanks to Brian Chambers and Todd Pappy, who are still on the TV, for agreeing to be on the show this week. Some housekeeping before we let you go. Keep an eye out for next Monday's Calling All Devs, where we answer your questions about the golf ball issue, external API, ship interior customization, the Redeemer, and the future of your favorite ICC Stellar Cartographer agent who's been missing in action since Alpha 3.0 dropped. So for Reverse the Verse, I'm Jared Huckabee, that's Todd Pappy, that's Brian Chambers. I'm going to take a nap now. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.